All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure to welcome you once again to another episode of the Fleri Care Digest, where we dive into the most innovative healthcare providers on the continent, working with Fleri to make healthcare more affordable and accessible, um, financed by the diaspora for loved ones on the continent. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing the one and only CEO of MyCover.ai, Adebowale Banjo. Debo, I want you to introduce yourself to everybody who's watching, everybody who's taking a look at this. Tell us about yourself, who you are, and we're going to dive into a little bit of the backstory, how you came to lead this company.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Sam, for having me. So, hi everyone. My name is Adebowale Banjo. Most people call me Debo. Co-founder and CEO at MyCover.ai. MyCover.ai is an insurtech platform that is building Africa's digital insurance infrastructure. Our mission is to provide financial security for Africans by improving access to insurance products. I'm happy to be here and glad to engage with you all.
All right, thank you very much. So we try to get the real. We try to get the deep down that most people will not have a chance of knowing when they just see your company out there. Fleri is in the business of finding and partnering with the most innovative healthcare providers on the continent to ensure that people in the diaspora are able to find trusted providers of care and are able to make transparent, accountable payments for care for their loved ones. And so, our goal and our job is to ensure that the providers that we partner with are credible, are knowledgeable, but most importantly, have the integrity to provide the care that is needed. Um, Tell us a little bit about you and how you got into this particular space. What led to MyCover.ai?
Okay, well, so about me, I started my career in corporate, proper corporate. So I started, working in the bank and corporate banking, dealing with, other financial institutions and manufacturing and conglomerates. And after that, I then did some work for a boutique consulting firm that consulted primarily for FMCGs, right? So the likes of Unilever, Promasido, and basically this was around product launch and product penetration. And subsequently, I worked for a telco and then an e-commerce platform, right? And this was in roles such as head of business development, growth, and strategy. So all my life, I've done basically growth, business development. And then in 2016, I had my first foray into the insurtech space. And subsequently, I think 2 years later, I then went to take an insurance course, right? Basically to try and understand the nuances because I was drawn in by one, the gap between what is required to provide financial security and stability for the average African and what existed in terms of access, distribution, and then the infrastructure that was powering all of this by the legacy and traditional companies. So when I went through that process, at this time we're just doing auto comparison in the company that I was working with at the time. And then in 2020, Alex, my co-founder, was also at the company. We started having conversations around, sort of improving access to insurance products and taking this beyond auto insurance into, like, for lack of a better word, real needs, right? And this is not to say that, auto insurance isn't a real need, but we just wanted to bring more people. And when you talk about financial security, financial safety, you first rank life And with life, you have life insurance and health before you then look at assets, where you now have auto, gadgets, and all those products. You have to be alive first to insure anything else, right? So that sort of led us into building this infrastructure. And then when we took a deeper look at what the insurance companies were doing and how they were playing, we found that there were gaps around the product offering, the pricing, the coverage. So the traditional insurance plans required you to pay annual premiums or quarterly premiums, and then when they even did that, you still had to endure these long waiting periods to access certain care, and also pre-existing conditions, chronic conditions, things like that were excluded. So in our mind, we were like, how do we improve access, but also improve the quality of products? So we started working with insurance companies to co-create products. That's going beyond just taking products directly from them, but working with them to create products that would meet the specific needs of customers. And that's how we started building this platform, and we're doing the same across all product types, from health to gadget to auto, across all product types. But given the area of concentration here, that's how the health part of it got to come to play. And of course, it's a natural fit to partner with Fleri to improve access to users, particularly those in diaspora. I can't hear you, Sam. You're muted.
Yeah, so this has to happen at least once during the call, so you just got your first dose of it. Um, what I was saying is that as you tell the story of how you actually ended up getting into the health insurance space, but then the technology innovation space in health insurance, it reinforces something that I continue to hear every single time, right? And now we've had several CEOs and managing directors on this show. Um, but as you actually listen, you realize that everyone's experience is shaped by an encounter that they've had, a failure that they've had, sometimes even tragic. And like in your case, right, um, an evolution of an existing skill that you've built over time, and realizing how you could deploy that skill and expertise in a new area that would actually allow you to thrive, but also create an innovation that is needed. So we'll get some time to go into that a little deeper, but I really appreciate you touching on that. Going further in, right, you've done this amazing, had this amazing career coming in. Um, I'm pretty sure it wasn't easy. It wasn't just, hey, Debo and Ima want to start a company, and so like tomorrow, AXA is just like bending over backwards to support business. Hygia is like turning around, helping you figure all of these things out. They're incumbents in the space. You've identified a gap. Tell us a little bit about what that actual go to market for you experience was, right? The reason why I ask this question is it's very easy for us to talk about the healthcare system in Africa is broken. Everybody knows that it's not broken, it's just been non existent, right? No government today has intentionally taken steps to overhaul, right, and create the infrastructure and the incentives that are needed to actually build a proper working healthcare system. So you are starting out building something that is inherently flawed. We're helping people appreciate what it is to build solutions to decades long problems. Tell us about that.
Wow. Where do I start? I mean, so to your point, right? It seems all smooth and easy riding, but that hasn't been the case at all. I remember sometime, I think in 2021, it was we had to make a tough decision where things could literally crash, as in no company again, or we could pivot and then build this amazing thing that we're doing now. And thankfully that happened. Um, but to your point, so when we started having conversations, the first set of companies we reached out to, they were not just even ready to listen, right? Primarily because they felt, oh, we've been at this for far longer than you have, and these are the systems that we've always used and they've worked. Whatever definition that is in terms of they've worked, right? And some of them were asking for initial commitments for us, so basically to protect them, right? Manage their risk for them before they could partner with us. And we launched an initial version where we just then said, okay, let's take your products directly. At least let's see how this would go. And then we did that, but it didn't really take off. The same issues existed. People didn't like them. Pricing was too high for certain people. So we said, okay, let's tweak. And I remember when we eventually moved with our first partner, we had a lot of negotiations, compromise here and there just to build the very first version of the product. And we had to go get a large corporate just to provide some kind of cushion for them and all. Eventually, we started, and further down the road, we found that the capacity to expand that to where we are currently today didn't exist with our partner then because of certain restrictions and the direction they wanted to go at the time. So, in a period of about a month, we actually had to find a new partner, migrate all existing customers, change our code, change platform, and basically build a new solution while rendering service to existing customers. It was a crazy period. I remember when Alex and I were, and the team indeed were talking about this. It was a scenario where we were like, if this doesn't work, you'll be in a lot of mess. But thankfully, we were able to pull it off. Once again, down to just the tenacity of the team, the willingness to put in the shifts, and they never say that attitude that we all have as entrepreneurs and builders to always keep pushing. And then when we look back now, we all smile and laugh, and there's been a lot of improvement from that time till now, but things could really have gone south at that point. And there are so many other instances that, right, one could reference where, you know, challenges and decisions had to be made, and they were existential, right, literally. But we pulled through, and we've been going stronger by the day.
Yeah, as you tell the story, it reminds me of our own journey here at Fleri. Getting to getting to where we are and being able to refine a product. Right? Everybody acknowledges the problem. Everybody knows what the solutions are. They're not new. If the large majority of the people who live on the continent live on less than $1.90 a day, you cannot expect to build an industry that charges more than a day's wage to pay for healthcare. It doesn't make sense, right? And so to innovate, the only starting point is to do away with the existing norm and to create new rules. Now, the challenge is that the insurance industry across the continent is 85%, if not more, carried by the small percentage of corporate clients who continue to pay for it, largely because they are regulated, largely because they are enforced. Number two, the, the risk aversion of the existing players is largely to blame for the lack of innovation that we're seeing, right, in being able to expand new solutions and new products. And so I acknowledge 100% what you're saying, but also how difficult it is in that moment. We faced our own existential problem where, we started out with an MGM model when we started, right? Working exclusively with a provider, right, on the continent, only to run into some challenges and realizing that, you know, that actual first point, that exclusivity, is in itself like one of the biggest flaws in trying to build anything on the continent. Because exclusivity in our context does not actually spare partners on to say, hey, this is why we are motivated to go the mile, the long distance with you. Instead, it creates an attitude of, well, you really have nowhere to go. So, it's us or nothing else, right? And it's such a crazy, crazy like mindset to actually encounter. And so I really appreciate you giving that backstory, and looking at, no, we can't innovate by taking the same rule books. Every new player that really wants to create change has to rewrite the rules. And I think you're doing that, right? We've seen even recently, right, a situation where we had gone through and pushed, some new renewals, only to realize that it's the same challenges, right? What did they come down with? Chronic illness, pre-existing condition, age. The same things over and over again. Like, this is not new, right? It's the reason why Fleri exists the way that it exists. We hold nothing to any one provider, right? We create a platform, an exchange, a marketplace where you will compete, and may the most innovative healthcare provider continue to win. It's as simple as that. And so bringing in MyCover.ai has been increasingly, you know, changing the conversation, because people actually are not blind. They know what the difference is and where the value is. So yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I relate with what you said. I understand, and it's interesting that, I think barely a few days after we launched on your platform, we started getting clients immediately, which again is a testament to the appreciation of good products and innovative products, by people generally. Right.
Well, 100% on that, and I think we will continue to push, right, in that way. Now let's get into your operations, right. Um, Today, while you have ambitions to democratize access to healthcare, build resilience from a financial wellness standpoint for Africans on the continent, your starting point is in Nigeria. I want you to
Absolutely.
give us, an appreciation or understanding for the way that you work, the teams that you have, your approach to um, your product innovation, your product design, as well as your approach to partnerships. How does MyCover AI work to bring all of this care that you're known for?
Well, there's a lot packed in that question, so I'm going to try and strip it. And so first, so yes, we operate primarily in Nigeria for now, but our focus is across the continent, right? But we're started in Nigeria, and that's basically because one, the problem is just severe here, right? So today, about 82% of our population, right, pay out of pocket for healthcare. That tells you, how many people are outside of the health insurance system to start with. And then when you look at the legacy companies, the incumbents, and how they are refusing to change to be able to pull more people into into that ecosystem, you know that someone has to innovate around this problem. So there are institutional voids, there are infrastructural deficits, and MyCover.ai is here to fix all of that. And in terms of the team, right, so there's of course myself, Alex, and Fred, who are co-founders, and we have a currently 23-man strong team. We all operate out of Lagos, and that's split between tech, business development, and of course operations support, customer success, and operation. Because again, what we've done is to not leave the management of the customer exclusively to our partners. So we've built out an entire team so that we can also give first-hand support and customer experience to our customers. And that's important because when people need to utilize healthcare services, they are usually not that's not the time to be giving excuses because they're usually either very sick or in a bad mood. And you want to design processes that make sure that that experience is pleasant, right? And if there are hiccups at any point in time, they have a dependable point of contact that can help them resolve that as quickly as possible. So we've built that team, a very diverse team full of competent people. And in terms of how we create these products, right? And what sort of goes into product creation for us? I think there are a number of elements, right? One of them is what you spoke to earlier around just affordability, right? So the point is, why create products that nobody can buy except the top 1%? Right? You're trying to provide financial security. You're trying to include as many people as possible, which means your price points have to reflect that. And that's why we've created, I think, we have a range of products now, right? Our cheapest product is 1,500 naira per month, right? So 1.5 monthly, a lot more people can afford that. But for us, so we've looked at affordability. But then again, to the other thing we were trying to address, which is the scope of coverage. What we found is people usually would trade off quality for affordability. So when you get a 1.5 plan, it's typically something that just covers malaria and there's nothing else to it, right? But what we've done is to create a product that is affordable, but yet robust in its coverage. So, for instance, on that plan, you have things like primary care, secondary care, eye care, dental care, surgeries, admission, child delivery, all on the 1.5 monthly plan, right? But it doesn't include pre-existing conditions and chronic conditions. But it's enough to cater to the average Nigerian who wants to have an introduction into health insurance and sort of provide a safety net for themselves in terms of health challenges. And then so that was like the initial platform to build on, which was affordability and the scope of coverage. And then that was the product we went to the market with, and then we got a lot of traction. And then we started thinking about what's next, right? What then do we do to provide more value? So what we found with our constant interaction with customers is some of them had, pre-existing conditions, some of them had chronic conditions, some of them required higher limits on certain plans. And then that led us to create better products, more innovative products that were now all inclusive, that were capturing, specialist consultations, surgeries at higher limits, pre-existing conditions, diabetes, high blood pressure, chronic conditions, and just catering to the needs of what you would call special customers, right? In terms of they have specific needs, right? So for us, again, it's what does the customer want? And in providing financial security, you are looking at what are the things that will typically drain their resources, what are the things that will typically cause them to spend, and we are designing products that would help address those things while remaining affordable. That's why you see that our plans, even though they are robust, are still affordable as well.
Saying I really appreciate the background into that. You touched on something there, being able to match the robustness of your plans to the affordability, right? So we've been made to believe over time that giving the small pool of people who today, like you rightly pointed out, patronize health insurance, it's actually not possible to be able to provide affordability. And in itself, it's like a virtuous cycle of death, right? In that way, if you don't expand or improve the quality of the product, you don't get people who trust the health insurance and that it would actually cover for what it's supposed to cover, which means that you never actually acquire new customers. Your pool continues to remain small, and it's a never-ending cycle, right? That is self-defeating. Now, you are going against this by first creating a robust set of products. you know, making sure that it matches the actual price point on that end. What is it that you will say to the person who's listening and wondering, oh, does this actually go on to cover my circumstances in that end, right? Or this is only affordable because it really doesn't serve much, right? Because your plans are also not micro insurance plans. Your plans are full set, comprehensive healthcare plans. I want you to speak a bit to this, right? In terms of what coverage actually looks like. And we'll get into like the details of the specific coverage, but what does it look like to balance out robustness when someone tries to understand that? What does it mean to have a comprehensive healthcare plan, and how do you manage to do that and compete at the same time? Oh, now it's your turn to speak on mute.
Okay. All right. So, like I said, your questions are always like multifaceted. They are layered. So again, I'll try to, you know, peel back some of these layers. So, in terms of like what comprehensive health insurance looks like, so the idea for us, again, this goes into the design process. The thought behind this is first, what does the average Nigerian need in terms of healthcare support, right? And that includes things like I said, malaria, typhoid, cold, and all the things you would typically need other primary healthcare, right? Okay, so that's covered. What are the extra things that they need? Oh, okay, eyes, so challenges with their eyes, with their teeth, with their ears, so ENT. Okay, all right. Um, let's add that on. Surgeries, admissions, tests. Again, so the idea is to look at it from a needs perspective. What do people really need? And then for the average Nigerian who doesn't have a chronic condition or a pre-existing condition, the idea for us is to provide a plan that offers you everything in that regard. So we have plans that offer one, tests, um, primary care, secondary care, specialist consultation, eye care, dental care, like I said, antenatal care. And then we also have 24/7 telemedicine support in case you don't want to go to the hospital, emergency response. So again, it's from that needs perspective. What does the average Nigerian need when it comes to health insurance? And then we design the first product to meet that need, right? And then the next layer to that is how do we then expand access, right? So if I was on a 100K limit, how do I get to a 200K limit, right? So how do we expand that? So we expanded the scope and the benefit limits, and of course added a few extra bucks on top of that. And then the next question is: so there are people who are not the average Nigerian in this sense now, in that they have pre-existing conditions, they have chronic conditions, or they are just elderly, right? So typically you will find that most, for instance, and most health insurance plans are capped at 60, right? 60, 65, right? So we then said, okay, look, those are things that we need to address, right? So we now created higher plan, right, that covers all of these things that I mentioned earlier. But in addition to that, chronic conditions, pre-existing conditions, and increase the limits to 80, right? So we can cover a lot more people in terms of, so your parents can get covered. And those are the people that need those kind of things the more. The older they get, the more susceptible they are to illnesses and all of that. So for us, designing a robust plan is a plan that is able to offer you 360 degrees protection, right? Per time, whether that is on primary care or surgeries or emergencies, on pre-existing conditions, on child delivery, whatever it is, we're able to offer you like all-round protection. That's how we see what a comprehensive health insurance plan is. And then in terms of how do we balance the pricing, right? Um, so what we've done is to create a pool with our partners, right? And we have different products across this pool, the ones I described earlier. And the truth of the matter is, at some point, at the initial stage of this, we were subsidizing these plans actually, right? And but thankfully, we've been able to grow to a place where the plans are now self-sufficient. The
Yeah.
pool, not the plans, the pool is self-sufficient, right? And then it's catering for everything. But at the beginning, we had to subsidize it, and we didn't mind doing this, even though it was almost like we were bleeding cash, but because of the overall vision, right, which again underlines our commitment to this, right, is that when we went to the church, like that, look, if you don't give us this, we can't deal. Like, okay, no problem. This is what you need to be able to keep this product. We'll provide that, and then we'll try and sort ourselves out, in terms of customer acquisition and partnerships and all of that. And then we did that, and thankfully the product resonated with a lot of Nigerians, right? And we're here, right? So that's how we've been able to balance it, and we're creating a more a healthier pool, right, by the day, in terms of the more people come in, even though you have those coming in at the pre-existing condition levels, you're having those coming in at those other levels as well. So we are balancing it out. So it's a science and an art as at the same time, right? Sort
Mhm.
of providing that balance. But again, the one thing to note is that this is something that we are committed to long term, and I think that's the challenge with the incumbents, right? They haven't taken a long term view of this space, which is, if I even take some early hits, right, to grow the market and reduce that 82% that pay out of pocket to 40%, and then suddenly the size of my pie is significantly larger, and then what I make from that more than compensates for the initial years that I took the lead for, right? And that's sort of how we are looking at it, and that's what has helped us so far.
Yeah, I really appreciate you breaking that down for us. Now, let's get a little bit more into and let's get a little bit more into like the outcomes that you're trying to see, right? You touched on a couple of things. The need to subsidize in the beginning in order to create initial growth, right, and traction. You've got into a healthier, general ledger or risk pool. Um, let's talk about what you hope to achieve, right, as a company with what you've built. Obviously, we talk about the fact that the incumbents will need to play a different game in order for them to expand and grow the business that they have. The potential is in the business, right? We continue to have a continent that has a large young pool.
Absolutely.
The ability to access healthcare is only going to, or the need to access healthcare is only going to expand. Every single UN, General Assembly, healthcare continues to be the primary challenge for almost every emerging country, right? You, as a provider that is directly solving this from a private lens, what are the outcomes that you want to see? What do you hope to achieve?
Yeah, there are a number of those really, right? The first one is, of course, improvements in adoption, right? I'd like a scenario like I mentioned where almost every Nigerian and almost every African has an health insurance plan, right? That is an outcome that we're trying to, and of course we know this will take time. So we are looking at this in milestones. So first 100,000 users, first 500,000 users, first 1 million users, and then scale it on from there, right? So those are like outcomes that we are looking to have. Another one is that hopefully this will reflect on the industry as a whole, and many more players will start to see it the way we see it, right? And then, of course, make that journey to ensuring everyone a shorter one, right? In terms of the more players, even including the incumbents, are able to see this as an opportunity to grow the market and really, really capture everyone, then they start to do things differently. So we are hoping that beyond us hitting our milestones, we're able to control the narrative that then influences both the incumbents and new players in the industry to toe this line and be more inclusive in their design. And then the next outcome would be to be able to create even more robust plans, right? So we are at the earlier stages, right? Today, so we've talked about chronic illnesses and pre-existing conditions. There's also critical illnesses, right? The cancers of the world and brain tumors. That's another level. That's something we're also looking to solve for, right, with time, providing plans that offer coverage to those kind of illnesses. So you see less GoFundMe ventures online, and people are able to rest assured knowing that this they are covered. Simple. They are just covered, right? Once you buy these types of plans, you have coverage for your regular illnesses, your chronic conditions, and of course your critical illnesses as well. And then finally, the last outcome would be that all of this would then influence the quality of healthcare within the country. That it will influence people bringing more money into the continent to invest in actual infrastructure, in terms of quality of care. Hopefully, our doctors stay because the capacity to earn more is here, right? The infrastructure to support, the finance to support is here, and that ultimately grows the healthcare system across the continent. So those are the outcomes that we are looking at.
Okay. Um, that makes a lot of sense on that end, but I'm going to push on. Well, I guess we have a couple of questions here that I should take. Um,
Okay.
Oluchi is asking, what are some of the efforts that are being made or that should be made to educate more people in Nigeria about the adoption of the concept of health insurance, and then eventually to purchase plans for themselves and their family members, right? So that's the question that she's asking. Could you take that?
Efforts to be made to educate Nigerians. Um,
Yes,
or
with regards to the health insurance adoption, yeah.
I think there are a series of things to be done, right? Sessions such as this are important. We need to have a lot more of them, right? Where we just talk about the solutions, the challenges, the solution, and the importance of having insurance. I think we all need to write a lot more about it in terms of putting information out there. And there's a lot of misinformation around, oh, insurance is expensive. So some people already just block themselves off it, right? But we need to do a lot more in terms of educating people that insurance is affordable, and then you can start at certain levels, and as your income increases, you can scale up. And hopefully, as we bring more people into the pool, we can even further drop, the initial cost of onboarding, right? I think again is to engage at grassroots level, right? And also engage people in universities so that that mindset is such that is one that is developed at an early stage. I was interviewed recently and I was explaining the concept of insurance, and maybe I'll again reference it here. And I said that we should see insurance almost like a football team, right? You see life as a football team where there are three main areas of a football team. You have your strikers, you have your midfielders, and you have your defenders, right? Your strikers are your investments. So as an individual, where you're investing, whether you're buying stocks or ETFs or you're investing in real estate, whatever it is you're doing, those are your strikers. They score goals and make you wealthy, right? Your midfielders, they serve two purposes. They help you, and that's your savings, right? So you fund your investment from your savings, right? So they help you launch your attack. So the 10 in this case helps you launch your attack, and the 4, which is the holding midfielder, helps you protect, yourself. So when you have an accident, you take from your savings to protect yourself, right? And that savings is your midfielder, and investment are your strikers. However, no team plays without a defense, and insurance is your defense, right? So insurance is what stops you from taking out of your savings to cater to yourself. So if you're in an accident, right, you typically have taken money from your savings to fix your car. But if you had gotten a good defender, in which in this case is an insurance policy, that car will be repaired without you having to take out of your savings. So that's the analogy. And people need to see insurance as a financial decision, not an afterthought. It's a smart money move, right? It's a move where, as an individual, as I'm growing, I'm hoping to be rich and I'm investing to that end. I'm saving to be able to fund that investment, but I'm also protecting my downside by securing the right insurance policies that would help me do that. And I think we need to do a lot of education in that regard. First, to make people understand that insurance, whether it's health, whether it's life, whether it's travel, or whatever it is a financial decision first, right? It's a smart money move. And I think when we do that, it helps to awaken the consciousness, because no matter how poor you are, right, not having an insurance policy only increases the chances of you becoming poorer, right? So that's the reality.
This is probably the best analogy. And Oluchi just said it. It's probably the best analogy that I've ever had to building a financial plan for your life. And you couldn't have said it more, smartly. This is going to throw a challenge to our content team to go on and then actually develop an animation on this, and name it the Devil Plan, right? So, so we can get it out there. No, seriously, I think you couldn't have said it more, in such a really, really great word. And it is the smart money move. Um, this is not to digress, but it's not just even an issue of people on the continent, right? It's a mindset that poverty like really brings on, right?
Mhm, mhm,
If you think about it, and I'll give you this stat, part of the reason why we started with Fleri, African immigrants have the lowest retirement readiness rate in America
mhm,
out of every immigrant group. And think about it. If we have the lowest out of every immigrant group, then we even have the lowest out of the population that lives here
mhm.
at 2%. That means for every 100 African immigrants that you come across, only two of them would have a plan for their actual retirement.
Wow.
When you talk to African immigrants, and this is not a generalization even about immigrants, it is particular to African immigrants, and you tell them why you need to have an insurance plan, most people immediately become defensive and think that you are speaking evil into their life. Do you want me to die?
Mhm,
Why would you come and tell me something like that? Who
mhm,
do you think you are?
mhm.
Right? But we don't realize exactly what you said. Our ability to take risks, because we're already hardworking, right? We are already, you know, um, capable of moving forward. We already have everything it takes to succeed. So why will we start off from a place that doesn't give us the peace of mind to know that my back is covered, my family is covered, while I do all of these amazing things, right, that I want to do in my life? And this analogy paints a very clear picture of how exposed, in the continent, out of the continent, how exposed we are because we don't have a plan to cover our shortfalls or the incidentals that arise. We only play midfield and attack. And what happens is, just like in football, every time the ball is kicked by the opponent, which is life, all
Mhm.
the way back, you have your attackers running to become defenders because we
Absolutely.
have no defense. And by the time they get there, you're going to fall from top of the mountain all the way into the valley. And if it happens worse, then we become a negative, which is you take all of your savings, and then you go on to use your savings to go cover a pet funeral, right? Now you're $20,000 in debt. Or mama got sick, she had to be taken to India or South Africa. You just went to go borrow money, right? Now, all of your money that you saved over 10 years is gone and you are in the negative. And this is exactly what continues to happen over and over and over for most immigrants, and even worse for most of us who are on the continent. Thanks a lot for really breaking that down in a way that we can relate to. Given, like just like Margaret said, given what football fans we are, this should tell us to think about it differently.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you were spot on with your analogy as well. I was reading the other day about how the third item that the remittances that come from the diaspora is spent on is healthcare.
Mhm.
And I'm like, so if you already, to your point, right? They call you that mama is sick or papa is sick, and you're sending money, right? So why not just use Fleri and subscribe and know that that part of it is covered, and your savings and investment can continue to work for you to grow your income and keep you rich or wealthier, however the case may be. And so there's a lot to be done in terms of educating people. And maybe, as we develop this concept some more, it begins to resonate more with people as to what needs to be done.
I think it's really really critical that we stop communicating in jargon and communicate in a way where people can understand and understand their own exposure. This really for me unblocked something with regards to the way that we talk about it, where I talk about premiums, exposure, risk pool, general ledger, primarily because that's the background. But
Mhm.
in reality, we should be speaking in terms that need to simplify this so people can understand it. This is really great. So I want to be able to dive into the actual plans that you have um, in the market, and we're going to take a leap into the Fleri Health Exchange and start analyzing what your offering really is, right? I think that is what caps it. What do you actually offer? What do people in the diaspora need to understand about MyCover.ai? And so we're going to quickly go through your plans, both the Flexi Care, the Zen Care, the Zen Care Plus, and then you're going to walk us through that. I'm going to share my screen in a second for us to be able to go through that, and then viewers can hear you talk about what your plans do, what they offer, and how they actually make a difference for folks with family in Nigeria, and how they can actually take advantage of this. Great. So we're going to start out with maybe an overview. So talk to us about your approach to insurance product design, the different types of products, and then we're going to get into or the different tiers of products, and then the different individual types themselves, and then we can go into that.
Okay, so like I said earlier, is the same concept, which is what do people need and how do you cater to those needs, right? And the underlying principle is that we don't want to design products for design's sake. We want to design products that are useful and that are impactful, right? And want to make them affordable as well. And so what you would find is whatever product it is that we design, there's a use case, there's a need, there's a gap in the market that that product speaks specifically to. So, for instance, in the case of FlexiCare Mini, that's like our entry product, right? That's a product that speaks to those who have never had health insurance, right? And they're trying to get health insurance for the first time, and maybe they don't want to spend too much or they don't have too much, right? But we're also not trying to exclude them from a robust care plan. So FlexiCare Mini offers these people at a cheaper rate of $4.82 on your platform, access to primary care, secondary care. And by I say primary care, I'm speaking to your malaria, your typhoid, your cold, your chest pain, back pain, whatever it is that can take you to the hospital, right? they are covered. And then we're looking at eye care, dental care. You are looking at outpatient, inpatient. Outpatient simply means you go in, see a doctor, pick a drug, and you walk out. Inpatient means that you get admitted in the hospital, they run tests, and this includes feeding, admission, all of that is covered within the plan. Surgery as well. So whether it's minor surgeries, intermediary surgeries, major surgeries, they are covered as well. For those who are married, antenatal care as well. For those who want to deliver, so it covers antenatal care and delivery. So that's the care before the delivery itself, and then the delivery proper, and then also neonatal care. That's care, for the child immediately after delivery, and that also includes CS, right? So if, for instance, the doctors decide that you need assisted delivery and you need an operation, right? This policy, even at this level, also covers that benefit, right? And so that's what we have designed with our lowest entry point product, which is a FlexiCare Mini.
Thanks a lot for going through that. So when you talk about the FlexiCare Mini and an introduction to health insurance for family back home, right, being paid for the diaspora. First and foremost, I see this all the time, but I think it's worth stopping and really thinking about this, right? If my mother or my sister or my cousins live in Nigeria, $4.82 a month, I can actually provide them with the peace of mind to go to school and know that, hey, sis, I know your kids are in school. I know kids play hard. I know kids can get sick. They pick up germs and all of that. Of all of the things that we literally spend on, $4.82 to provide a plan that gives your sister peace of mind, knowing that her kids are going to be okay. It's incredible and it's mind blowing, right? And we don't talk enough about the innovation and the amount of work that it takes to deliver care in this way is incredible. And I think that, we owe it to the work that you're doing to be able to point this out on our end and talk about how this is really, really critical for all of us, right? So let's go on and then talk in about the flexi care, and then we're going to jump to the higher tier plans, Zen Care, and then Zen Care Plus, right? Go on, give us a little bit more about how does the flexi care improve on the flexi care mini.
Oh, I will shortly, but before I do that, I'd like to double tap on something that you said, which is, if you have cousins or your sister back home, how, the way I put it is, if anyone falls sick and you will be called, right, to make some kind of financial contribution to that, you should have a health insurance plan for that person, whoever it is. If someone is going to fall sick and that would directly affect your finances, it's better to spend $4 a month ahead of time and prevent that from ever happening. And then it's affordable, right? And so that's very important. And I just wanted to double tap on that. However, FlexiCare, compared to FlexiCare Mini, expands on the benefits. So with FlexiCare, you have coverage up to 700. FlexiCare Mini, you have coverage up to 700,000. While with FlexiCare, you have coverage up to 1 million, right? So the scope, the limits that you can enjoy is a lot higher with FlexiCare. So like I said, just say it like a cascaded system, right? So there's your entry point of FlexiCare Mini. Ideally, right, FlexiCare is sort of like the the ideal place for an average Nigerian to be in, right? Where you have a lot more benefits in terms of the limits. Your pharmacy limit is more. You have admission limit is longer. You have up to 20 days admission, all covered with food and drugs, all catered for. So in terms of the benefits on eye care, dental care, the limits are higher, right? On FlexiCare. And this typically for those who can afford it is a minimum that you should be actually. But if you can't, then there's a Flexi Care Mini, which mirrors this plan but has a lower limit in terms of the limit of coverage, which is 700,000 and a million naira in benefits.
Super. Really, really appreciate that. And then you have the ZenCare and the ZenCare Plus, right? And I believe
Yeah.
the ZenCare Plus built on to the ZenCare. So talk to us about, the ZenCare series or the ZenCare tier of plans, and what that is meant to achieve, and how you kind of view those to be different. And still thinking about that, right? $42 a month, right, is significantly cheaper than the average cost, right,
Absolutely.
of a consultation, right? And it's important to point this out for those of you who are watching. A typical consultation in Nigeria or Ghana, for example, is going to cost between $20 to about 35 or $40, depending on the actual healthcare provider that you go to. For $42 a month, right, your family member on the highest tier is getting access to, you know, um, healthcare consultations, their doctor's appointments covered, surgery covered, maternity covered, optical covered, dental covered, emergency care covered. It really doesn't get better than that, right? We talk about how the system is the problem, but every solution has a cost. And being able to match up affordability, being able to match up robustness, being able to match up, the effectiveness of the solution, I think it's something that you need to be commended for in that work. So walk us through the ZenCare Plus series, um,
Thank you.
so people who are listening can understand that.
Thank you very much, Sam. So this is these plans are on steroids, pretty much, right? So first, I think the first difference is the tiers of hospitals, right? So we have a lot more hospitals on this plan, and then we have higher tier hospitals. And so typically you have category A, category B, category C, and D hospitals. On the ZenCare, you have category B to D, which is the second tier to the last tier, and on the ZenCare Plus, you have from the first tier, which is category A, to category D. So the quality of hospitals on this plan first, they are better. That's to start with. The second thing is the limits are way higher as well, and they cover pre-existing condition, they cover chronic conditions. So for people who have parents, for instance, that have high blood pressure, right? They need to take drugs almost every day, right? This kind of plan helps manage those cases, right? So you pay that every month, and you know that your drugs that they need and all of that is covered, right, within the plan. Like you mentioned, the surgery and all of that, the limits are way higher. Um, the limits on surgery, I think, is about 3.5x of what it is on FlexiCare, right? So the limits are way higher. Chronic conditions covered. The quality of hospitals are better. Um, Pre-existing conditions covered. And with this plan, the one thing to say with the ZenCare and ZenCare Plus, the ones on your platform, care is immediate. So 24 hours after you subscribe, you can access care. So that old waiting period or of 6 months or 3 months or 10 months is all removed from here. So again, it's what do people need, right? That's where all of this is coming from. And from our own point, we are looking at what are the immediate needs of people in certain brackets, right? If you have a pre-existing condition, you don't want to defer that to 6 months before it's taken care of. You need care immediately, right? If you have an elderly parent, you want to be sure that they are well taken care of, right? And this covers emergency transfers as well, right? So these are the significant differences between ZenCare Plus, and and the FlexiCare range. So the ZenCare offers significantly more in terms of limits. Just to sort of round up, they cover pre-existing and chronic conditions. They also offer they have higher hospital categories as well, and then the limits on them are significantly higher. And in certain tests like the CTI and MRI scans that typically are excluded from most plans are covered in these plans as well.
Super. You know, thank you for taking the time to break this down, right? And we continue to iterate and talk about this everywhere we go. Everybody knows what the problem is, right? There are few people who are building solutions on the continent, and I get often asked all the time, like, oh, but is there even quality healthcare on the continent? Yeah, there is, but it comes at a cost, right? It comes at a cost. The intersection of affordability and quality can be achieved, and you are living proof of that. I think
Absolutely.
your company is living proof of that. And as someone who went through the Techstars program as well, I think that give first mindset in being able to actually provide value and expect that value to create the money, the opportunity that is needed. I think that is what you're building with, and I'm super excited at the work that we're going to do together, and most
Absolutely.
importantly for the impact that you're having on Nigerians in the diaspora who are taking advantage of the plan that you created. um, Neville, this has been incredibly helpful to us. This has been very, very informative. Being able to dive into the work that you're doing. As we wrap up, I want to hear what you have to say to the people who are listening, who are in the diaspora, who today are thinking about their mom, their dad, their grandparents, their relatives, and even that young family that you saw when you went home to go visit in the neighborhood, those friends that you grew up with, but today are struggling, right? And their kids constantly calling you, asking, can you support? You, this is a way that allows you to provide something and know that my money is actually going towards the care that they need, right? And I think at the end of the day, that is the value that we're trying to create: efficiency, transparency, and accountability in the way that we care for our families back home. Let's hear the last words from you and then close out for today.
Okay, so first, thank you, Sam, for having me, and again for engaging in a very passionate topic for me, right? Um, and it's always great to work with people who share similar values and are looking to address the same challenges that you're looking to address as well. And I am sure that this partnership would be mutually beneficial and highly rewarding for those who take advantage of it, right, in their lives. I think for me, I'd like to start this by telling a story of a client we had who was working with an organization that had bought the FlexiCare plan for them. And then she lost her job. I don't know, I can't remember whether the company wound down or they sacked her. I can't remember the details, but she lost her job. And then she reached out and asked, oh, can I stay on this plan? Because apparently at the time she was pregnant and she had been accessing antenatal care. And given the price point, she could still afford it despite having lost her job, right? Eventually, she gave birth to what we term as FlexiCare's first baby, and we traveled to, she was in Ibadan, and we traveled to Ibadan to do a shoot and interview her. And she even had a surgery, actually, right? And
Yeah,
it was covered by the plan. And the stories, and we've since had many babies since then, but ours was the first baby.
yeah,
And stories like that, sort of underline why we're doing what we're doing, right? a case where, so imagine 4 years ago, or 2 years or 3 years ago, that loss of job would have meant that that woman would not have been able to afford healthcare. Simple and short. She wouldn't
Yeah.
have been able to do that. But because we had built these products that were affordable, even for people who had recently lost their jobs, right? And were robust enough to still help her deliver on that plan and have a surgery, we are actually impacting lives. And for us, when we look at this partnership, I look at Africans in diaspora who are working multiple jobs, doing everything to grow and be better for themselves and their children. And you don't want to spend your time working so hard only to take that money and cater to needs that you could easily have covered with insurance, right?
Yeah.
And when insurance that is affordable is also efficient, is working, it's a no-brainer to take advantage of it, right? And it's a call to them to, beyond even your immediate family, to look at those that are in and around, those your family members, and as much as you can to extend that hand of care and
Mhm.
fellowship to them, as much as you can, because we have built the products that make it possible, and this partnership with Fleri has simplified the process. It's provided instant, immediate access, and what would otherwise have been a long-winded process is just a subscription away. So I call on you guys to of course engage, and let's change this narrative together. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Really, really appreciate it. Devil, it's been an incredible time talking to you. I continue
Yeah.
to be reassured that um, as we look at the future, right, you hear every single person, right? And LinkedIn is like an echo chamber of all of this. Africa
Mhm.
is the continent with the largest number of, youthful population. 60% of the continent is under the age of 25. In 20 years, we will have the world's largest population. All of that, but everything evolves around two things. We talk about people, we talk about potential. In order for us to win, two things have to happen. We need to turn people into talent and potential into skill.
Mhm.
There is no talent or skill without a healthy, right, population. Otherwise, what you will have is a burden and a risk.
Mhm.
This is the biggest problem that we need to address as a people. And I am proud to have Fleri and myself associated with the work that you're doing, and to contribute in our own small way to more people learning about what you're doing to really change healthcare access on the continent. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Sam, for having me. It's really a pleasure. It's been engaging, and like I said, it's a topic I like to talk about. And thank you for engaging on this.
All right, I appreciate it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for this episode 8 of the Fleri Care Digest. Our guest, Devil of MyCover.ai. The company is a phenomenal, innovative health insurance company that is using technology to make healthcare more affordable, more accessible, but most importantly, more effective for the population that we truly have. If you live in the diaspora with family in Nigeria, you will be doing yourself a huge disservice if you don't log on to www.joinfleri.com and searching for the mycover.ai plans on our health exchange. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.